Most of our friends, honorary Grenadian Leontxo from Spain. Now, Leontxo is here this week as a guest of the Grenada Chess Federation. He has organized his extremely hectic schedule, visiting places, countries throughout the world to spread the unique concept of chess in education. He's a chess in education expert, as we refer to him. Most of us are familiar with chess as a competitive sport. We play each other and we look at winning and losing games. But Leontxo is looking at chess from a FIDE master, but he does not play competitively now. He focuses more on the educational part of chess. And that's why when Vice President Junior Green attended the FIDE Congress in India this month, actually it's earlier this month, he was able to engage Leontxo and make arrangements in this very short period to visit Grenada. He has visited so far Dominica, where he spent a day, where he spent 3 days. He's spending a full 7 days in Grenada, and we are milking him as much as we can with sessions throughout the week, you know. So we have to commend Junior on that initiative. He came back like Santa Claus, bringing chess boards, chess clubs, and more importantly, almost bringing Leontxo with him. So we are happy to have him here, and for a full 7 days, he met with the Minister of Education and his team. This morning at the ministry, we were able to get a meeting with the minister, despite the fact that this is an extremely hectic week. Parliament opens tomorrow, and the minister was involved in the post-cabinet press briefing today. So we had to make some adjustments in the initial time, but happily, Leontxo was able to engage with the minister and his team. And from all reports, things are looking up for chess. We have gotten the endorsement of the Ministry of Education to spread the word of chess, not just in communities, but very importantly in schools. So this is actually the third session of the day for Leontxo. He did the Ministry of Education this morning. He did the South St. George Government School early this afternoon, meeting with the principal and teachers. He's with us here this evening, and I must also mention that he did a pre-recording with GIS this morning at 11:30 on all about chess in education. So let me happily turn over to Leontxo. Is there anything you'd like to say? We can turn right over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, the summary of my first 24 hours in Grenada is really, well, I am delightful by this country. So I am doing my best, and I will continue doing my best during the whole week to help you. Thanks a lot, of course, to all of you for being here today. My main job for the last 39 years has been chess journalist. I work for El País. El País is the most similar newspaper in Spanish to the New York Times. It's a very influential newspaper, not only in Spain, in many Spanish-speaking countries as well, and is for sure the newspaper with more chess content in the world. I am telling you this because that means that in the last 39 years, I have met and interviewed practically all the best chess players in the world. I have interviewed all world champions since Botvinnik, except Petrosyan. I can say with no exaggeration that in between the years 1984 and 1990, I spent more time, more days, traveling around the world with Karpov and Kasparov than with my family at home. So I'm telling you this because if after your questions regarding educational chess in particular, you are interested on me telling you about my experiences with the best champions in the last, since the 50s, because Botvinnik was world champion in the 50s last year, so I can tell you about all that. I have a lot of information about all kinds of these things. But let's focus on educational chess. Educational chess for chess players, which is a different focus than when I am talking to school teachers. I have a good friend of mine, he's both grandmaster and journalist. He's from the Netherlands. His name is Hans Ray, and he has a very nice sentence. He says, chess is so rich that just one life is not enough to enjoy. Okay, but that sentence goes even deeper than you are thinking right now. Because you are thinking now about chess just as a game, as a sport. And it is true, what Hans says, he is right. Do you know that the number of different games you can play in a chess board is bigger than the number of atoms in the known universe? The number of atoms is 1 followed by 80 zeros. And the number of different games you can play is 1 followed by 123 zeros. That's why no computer is today still able to play perfect chess. They play chess much better than the world champion, but they are far away yet from playing perfect chess. They will only play perfect chess when the quantum computers will arrive. But we don't know when. It can take many years yet. So, but chess is not so infinite in terms of game, sport, but also about the connections of chess with many different interesting, fascinating fields of human knowledge. Chess has very interesting connections with artificial intelligence, psychology, psychiatry, mathematics, literature, cinema, different sports. 15 centuries of documented history, and so on. And, of course, I didn't mention yet because I was thinking about lefting this to the end, pedagogy. I mean, education. We have enough scientific evidence and many more than 5 years international experiences to say that chess is a very powerful educational tool. As a summary of all that, we can say categorically that those children who are just playing chess, or even better, using chess as an educational tool, are developing their intelligence more than the others in different branches, including the emotional intelligence, which is a very important field today in the 21st century when it comes to innovative education. And they are also improving their rates, their academic rates, in general, but mainly in maths and reading. Now, if you notice it, if you realize it, I distinguished between just playing chess or using chess as an educational tool. This is very important, and we must understand this. We have also scientific evidence to say that just playing chess is very educational, or can be very educational. If I want to be very strict when talking about this, I have to make an exception. Playing chess is not educational if you are obsessed by chess. If in your life there is only chess and nothing else. Because then you cannot transfer what you are learning from chess to anywhere. But this is a minority, and it's quite easy to avoid. I mean, by parents, trainers, coaches, school teachers, etc. It's quite easy to avoid that risk. Okay? Now, but it is much more pedagogical to use chess as an educational tool. So, we have to distinguish between chess in the curriculum hours given by school teachers, I mean by professionals of pedagogy, not by chess players, and extracurricular chess given by chess players. It is important for these chess players becoming chess instructors to have some knowledge on pedagogy. I repeat the last thing I said because this is a universal problem. I'm not talking about Grenada, I'm talking about the whole world. Most of chess instructors in the whole world have very little knowledge on pedagogy. And this is a real problem, because if the principal goes to the chess class, the extracurricular chess class, and sees that the chess instructor has no idea about pedagogy, we can have serious problems about keeping chess there as an extracurricular activity. So one of my advices is, when you are going, for the federation, I'm sure you are planning to train more chess instructors. Don't forget that knowing a lot about chess is not enough. They should know at least something about pedagogy, because they are going to work with children. So this is very important. Now, another very important idea I want to spread all over the world, especially inside the chess world. By introducing chess in the curriculum, later on I will tell you how is the most practical way to do that. But by doing that, the most important thing is that chess is contributing to a high quality education of millions of children all over the world. But secondly, now let's become very pragmatic. Let's think as chess players, as chess people, not as human beings or citizens. the best way to promote chess as a sport is to introduce it massively in the curriculum as an educational tool. Why? Because if you promote chess only as a sport, most likely chess will be always minoritarian. But if you alphabetize in chess the 100% of the students of your country, your territory, your whatever, I mean, they are going to know just a little bit about chess, just a little bit, not more than that. But if only 3% out of this 100% feels attracted by competitive chess, then the number of chess players is going to dramatically be increased, right? Think about the 3% of the Grenadian students being active chess players. How many players are we talking about, compared to the current reality? And I didn't finish with this idea, because don't forget about the remaining 97%. Most likely, they are not going to play chess in the rest of their lives, okay? But most likely, their memories about chess will be positive. Many of them will become influential people in the society. Ministers, chief of marketing of some companies, editors of some newspapers, principals of some schools, or simply mothers and fathers. But as they will have a positive memory on chess, getting a sponsorship and support for chess, for instance, for the federation, will be much easier than now, because you are creating a very strong chess culture. Now, how to do it? This is the million-dollar question. When I get to more or less to this point in my presentations for ministers and people like that, high officials, some of them interrupt me at this point, and they tell me, okay, you have convinced me with scientific studies, long international experiences, and so on. But now tell me, what I'm going to take out from the curriculum to put chess instead? And the right answer to that is nothing. And this is very important, because if you have to take out something, you are creating a problem. If you don't have to take out anything, then the ministers are very happy about this. Because what we are talking about is using chess in a transversal way or interdisciplinary. What that means? Transversal means, for instance, chess together with emotional intelligence, which is transversal to all subjects. And it's extremely important. Today, for any school teacher, it doesn't matter which country he belongs to, knowing something about emotional intelligence is very important. So, chess suits very well with emotional intelligence. Chess can help you a lot to control your emotions and to deal with your emotions and so on. Now, interdisciplinary. That means chess together with many subjects, for instance, not only, but for instance, with math. A big part of geometry, algebra, and arithmetic can be explained in a very efficient way for the school teacher and very funny for the students through chess. You are applying this very old principle that says learning by playing and playing by learning. The concept of gamification is now very related to innovative education. I mean, introducing games as a way to learn in a smoothest way. And chess is the best game to do that for sure, I mean, by far. In order to be more concrete, I can put you just one example. Suppose, talking about geometry. Suppose I am the school teacher, and I say, okay, when you think about a rectangle, how do you see a rectangle? Probably your answer is going to be something like this, right? This is a rectangle. Okay, but if we give a vision to a 7-year-old girl or boy, in 2 seconds, we have an inclinated rectangle. For instance, C1, A3, A3, F8, F8, H6, H6, C1. Inclinated rectangle. Now, the school teacher can teach several interesting things based on that. First, don't look only for right rectangles, because it can be inclinated. Second, by extension, many geometrical figures can be inclinated, not necessarily right. And third, the most important one, you are not the center of the world, and everything has to be adapted to you. You have to adapt yourself to how things are in reality. And if you have to look like this in order to understand that this is a rectangle, do not wait until it gets right to say this is a rectangle. This is just one example. Another could be, is the chessboard symmetric? Any answer to that? It looks symmetric, right? But the corners colors are different. So there is no symmetry there. But the right answer is it depends. It depends on the axis. If the axis is horizontal or vertical, there is no symmetry. But if the axis is diagonal, if we fold the chessboard diagonally, we have a perfect symmetry. I have just explained a quite complex concept to you in less than 1 minute using just an empty chessboard. That means that I mean, suppose I am a school teacher, I don't need to know anything about chess to explain this. And I only need to know how a bishop moves to explain the previous example. And so on and so forth. I mean, I can give you hundreds of examples. You can use also chess in history, because chess has more than 1,500 years of documented history. So you can explain the universal history in a parallel way to the chess history. You can use it in physical education. In Spain, they have invented a game where some physical moves are based on the chess moves, and so on. You can give chess in a foreign language. What is the second language here? French, Spanish, or Spanish? Okay, if the foreign language here is Spanish, you can teach chess in Spanish. And then in 1 hour, you are teaching 2 things. And things like that. Questions?
Okay. All right, well, you have heard the introductory parts of the remarks, and it's really fascinating to be exposed to this angle of chess. So, we open the floor for questions that you may have. How to improve maths using chess. Not about winning a game now, but using the concept to translate it to your maths and learning the whole principles, basic of of the subject. So questions, comments, the floor is open.
Question, Leontxo, you have mentioned that you did some work with Kasparov. What you did together with him?
Well,
First of Gary Kasparov, former champion. He was from 86 or 86.
he was world champion since 1985 until 2000, but he was number one for 20 years in a row until 2005. His rivalry with Karpov is the biggest in the history of all individual sports, not only chess. Well, do you want me to speak only about Kasparov or put it in the No, okay. Now, by now, let's do it only about Kasparov, because otherwise it would be too long. Kasparov is a very fascinating character, one of the most fascinating I ever met. In order to understand Kasparov as a person, as a human being, you have to know about his mother. Kasparov's father died when he was 9 in Azerbaijan, 3,000 kilometers southeast from Moscow, in the Caucasus. By that moment, when the father died, Gary has shown already an extraordinary talent for chess. And then, as the mother realized that her son's talent for chess was really exceptional, she announced, with several witnesses in the family, she announced when Gary was 9 that she was going to leave her profession as an engineer to dedicate her life to convert her son in world chess champion. Saying that in any country sounds really crazy, right? Well, saying that in the Soviet Union at that moment was more crazy, because the world champion at that moment was Anatoly Karpov, a super national hero, because Karpov had beaten twice Viktor Korchnoi, who was a defector, a traitor for the Soviet Union, who after escaping from the Soviet Union, he won the candidates tournament, he became the challenger against Karpov. They played the two most scandalous chess matches in history. The KGB Secret Service had a specific department to damage Korchnoi as much as possible in any possible way, including a plan to assassinate him if needed. That was revealed many years later when the KGB secret archives were disclosed. Then Karpov was the world champion, and Kasparov's mother pretended to destroy Karpov's kingdom, right? But actually it happened. 13 years later, Kasparov defeated Karpov in 1985, and in that way I am jumping over a lot of fascinating stories already, because the first match between them took 5 months, 84-85, and it was cancelled by FIDE president, Mr. Campomanes, with no winner, because theoretically FIDE and the Soviet authorities were very worried about their health, the players' health. In order to understand this well, because otherwise probably it sounds to you like a, I don't know, fantastic novel or something like this, fantasy novel. You have to understand, you have to know that the Soviet Union was the biggest country in the world, 287 million inhabitants, and out of them, 5 million registered chess players and 50 million free as pastime. So chess was a passion as important as football, or even more important than football in Russia, not in Russia, in the Soviet Union for more than 40 years. That means that from the political point of view, chess was also a window for the Soviet Union's government, the communist government, to demonstrate the supposed superiority of communism over capitalism, intellectual superiority. So, Karpov was very protected by the big communist leaders. Then Kasparov, he was very young, but he started to win many tournaments by 13, 14, 15 years old, 16, 17, coming over, and he becomes a threat against Karpov's title, but also a symbol of perestroika. That Russian word means renewable spirit, the spirit of innovation. That was, the leader of that spirit was Mikhail Gorbachev, who became later on the prime minister or president of the Soviet Union. So Mikhail Gorbachev and his team were protecting Kasparov, and the all-communist guard were protecting Karpov. That's why their matches were much more than just chess matches. Now, the mother. In Christmas '85, 1 month and a half after Kasparov became world champion, the youngest world champion in history, at 22 years old, my newspaper sent me to Moscow to interview both mothers, because both mothers were as different as both, both champions. Karpov's mother was extremely friendly, lovely, unbelievably nice. Kasparov's mother is probably the strongest person I ever met. I was interviewing her, and she was talking, answering my previous question, and while she was talking, I was thinking, my goodness, the level of this conversation is getting so high that it's becoming almost mystique. It's too much, too high for my average readers. So I should change the matter of conversation. So as soon as she finishes her answer, my next question is as simple as that. What do you do in your free time? And she looks at me like if I was insulting her. What? Free time? You don't understand anything. Being number one all the time is extremely difficult and extremely hard. Therefore, living just for the pleasure of living is something we cannot understand. Nor Gary, nor me. My goodness. I thought, well, I'm not jealous of Gary Kasparov. I don't want to be Gary Kasparov anymore. You know, many years later, 2005, if I am not mistaken, Kasparov announces his retirement from the high top competition in Linares, Spain, after winning the tournament of Linares, which was like the Wimbledon of chess. At the final press conference, he announces that he stops playing chess in high competition. Then my newspaper decides next week, why he decides to retire? Because his next target in life is to destroy Vladimir Putin. He was active already as a politician. Kasparov was already active as a politician for the last 8 or 10 years in Russia. Then my newspaper next week sends me to Moscow to interview Kasparov, but under the condition that we will talk only about politics, not about chess. Then I arrive in Moscow and I stay with Kasparov for 3 days. He was always 24 hours per day surrounded by bodyguards. The car where we were moving was bulletproof. And because he was already, he had already serious problems about his physical security several times in the previous years. So the interview moment arrives and I put on the recorder. Gary, have you read Don Quixote de la Mancha? Don Quixote de la Mancha is the, how to say this in English? Can you help me, Caroline? Don Quixote de la Mancha is like the most important work on literature in the history of Spanish literature, right? Okay. By Cervantes. Okay. So, Kasparov's answer is yes, of course. But why are you asking me this? Because you remind me to Don Quixote de la Mancha, a very extremely romantic person. You could live like a millionaire in the country of your choice, doing things that are relatively easy for you, like giving lectures, giving simultaneous exhibitions, giving specific lectures for high businessmen or high officials of big companies and things like that, writing books. Instead of that, you are putting your life in danger every day. I understand. What do you mean? Okay, the problem is that I cannot afford the perspective of my children growing up in a dictatorship which looks like a democracy. So I feel the moral obligation to fight against that. And then when Kasparov was telling me that, I was remembering his mother was living for the pleasure of living is something we cannot understand. That means that for Kasparov, life makes sense only if he has a tremendously big target, goal. Becoming world chess champion, the youngest one in history. Being number one for 20 years in a row. Being the representative of the humankind against the computers when he played Deep Blue in 1996 and 1997. Deep Blue was an IBM machine. Then, well, destroying Putin. That's the new goal, right? So this is, I hope I have convinced you about Kasparov being a very extraordinary human being, not only one of the best chess players in history, perhaps the best one, I don't know, but a very extraordinary human being indeed.
Yes, okay. Question?
So since, I mean, when we asked you about Kasparov, you mentioned that. So what do you think, I mean, what was influence Kasparov's mother to make him a chess champion or chess player?
If I have to summarize it in only one word, discipline with capital letters. Every minute of Kasparov's life during his sportive career was measured, controlled, and squeezed to get the most. For instance, but I mean even the many details that you cannot think about if you don't know it. For instance, Linares, the Wimbledon of chess, lunchtime. All the other participants, I mean, top players in the world, are coming to the hotel's restaurant in a relaxed way, dedicating maybe at least 1 hour for lunch, even more in some cases. Not Kasparov. Kasparov's mother was coming to the restaurant first alone. She will make sure that everything is in order. I mean, the first dish, the main dish, the water, the coffee, whatever, the table, and all. Then she calls Gary. Gary comes very quickly, sits down, eats everything, and goes to the room again to finish preparing the next day.
Question? Yes.
Yeah, talk about chess as an educational tool for the school. Can you tell us like the importance of the communication and teaching of chess?
The importance of communication,
The notations in chess. Yeah.
communication and the
Notations. Notations.
Notation.
Yes. Yes. That is the C.
Like recording the way of communicating a game between two persons.
Right.
Between two players.
Ah. Well, it works, you know that it works like the coordinates system in maths, I mean, in geometry. The columns are A to H, and the files are 1 to 8. So this is like a language, a very easy to understand language. And once you are familiar, in a few days' time, you don't need to think about that. I mean, when you get familiar to that, if I say C6, you know it's a white. Sometimes, yesterday was the last time in Twitter, one of my followers in Twitter asked me, how can you remember, I mean, can you memorize the whole game to comment it in your videos in 15 or 20 minutes? I have a section called the Immortals Corner. Those are the most brilliant games in history, commented by me in videos, 15, 20 minutes each. We publish one every Monday. We have published already 362. 63. And then the answer to that follower is, well, because what I am using is not photographic memory. I don't have photographic memory. I am using logical memory, which is very different. All the pieces are connected by motives or reasons of defense, attack, pawn structure, king safety. So chess players are working by patterns. For instance, if you tell me Indo-Benoni defense with the black bishop in g4, I am visualizing a 30 pieces position, because all those 30 pieces are structured in such a way that all of them are connected somehow. Attacking, defending, pawn structure, king safety, and so on. That means, from the neurological point of view, that means that these 30 pieces occupy only one room of memory in my brain. But if I show that position to somebody who doesn't play chess, and he or she has to memorize that position, he has to occupy 32 rooms of memory in order to, not 32, no, 30, sorry, 30 bytes, 30 units of memory to remember that position. And for me, it's only 1 unit, because I am seeing the 30 pieces all together. Connecting to that, we can make an experiment. Choose a position from some game played, some game that it is impossible for me to know in advance. I don't know, from Mongolian Championship in 1947, okay? Any game, any position, and you put the position there. And you give me 1 minute to memorize where all the pieces are. After 1 minute, you destroy the position. Most likely, I will remember all pieces, or with few mistakes. But immediately after that, somebody who has no idea about chess puts a lot of pieces in the board, randomly. And you give me again 1 minute. In this occasion, I will not be able to remember that position. I will make a lot of mistakes. Why? Because in the second case, you need a photographical memory. And I don't have that. This is a very extremely rare skill that extremely few people have. But I have developed a lot the logical memory, the patterns. So in the Mongolian Championship game, I will remember the logical connections between pieces. And that helps me to remember the whole position.
Okay. But I should also mention that you may have felt it, but Leontxo is a chess lecturer. Yes, he actually lectures at universities, everywhere, just about everywhere. He has taught over 30,000 teachers in 29 or 30 countries throughout the world, all focusing on chess education. And interestingly, he is a commentator, a live commentator on chess. So he has done live commentary on world championships and other top games. It's been interesting to hear commentary on chess versus football of the kids. Like when Junior and them were playing there, I should have probably asked him to do some live commentary on chess, because but it shows the different dimensions of chess. I have a chess journalist for the last 30 years. As a journalist, as he has mentioned, several publications, several videos produced, all in relation to chess education. But one of the questions that I wish to raise, from here, what next? If you are to advise the Federation to listen, adopt this policy, and based on your 3%, if we have the population of Grenada still 100,000, right? Yes. So we're talking about 3,000 chess players, right? Through that system, Grenada having 3,000 active chess players, plus other people who can play chess, other people who are interested in the development of chess because they somehow would have benefited from it during their early days. So in that way, again very creatively, as he said, sponsorship is not a problem because all these people know the value of chess. So it's all linked, and it's about, if I may summarize it, it's about integrating chess into the culture of society. So, now that's a tall order. We started with this concept, chess in education, for the first time. Here in this first lecture, fascinated. And you are advising the Grenada Chess Federation to move forward with that angle in mind, so that in 10 years from now, the number of chess players will automatically multiply. So if you are to advise us step by step in terms of getting chess in education off the ground, what would be your advice?
Well, first of all, make completely sure that you have breaking the ice completely. What I mean by that? I'm not talking specifically now about Grenada, but about the whole world. For a big majority of human beings, chess, when you say the word chess, they think about something very complicated, only for very intelligent people. This is a very big mistake, but you have to destroy that wrong idea. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how well the Federation designs the project, your success is not going to be the same if you don't break this ice pretty quick. Because you have to, I mean, it's not difficult to break that ice, especially if some influential journalists are helping you on that. Because it is as easy as comparing somebody who likes running in the beach, for instance, or somebody who is a professional of marathon, a professional runner. Both of them are running, right? But there is some difference, yes? Okay. If you want to be a top grandmaster in chess, you have to be born with a specific genes, genetics. And you have to work as an animal very hard, very constantly for many years. So that is really extremely difficult, and probably it's only for very intelligent people. But if you want to enjoy chess as a pastime, you need, I don't know, a couple of hours to know the basic rules. And if you want to use it as a pedagogical tool or as a social and therapeutical tool, and we can also talk about that if you want, then you only need about 10, 12 hours workshop, and you can start already. So first point, Mr. President, making sure that you break the ice, because then you create the right chess culture. Then, well, the school teachers are going to help you a lot, because once they discover that chess can be a very useful professional tool for them, they are going to put a lot of interest on promoting chess as an educational tool. And they are going to involve families. For instance, I have seen some children, young students, are going home singing some chess songs. For instance, how to place the pieces on the board, how the pawn moves, I don't know, whatever. There are some songs specifically about that. Then the mother or the father is going to ask, what are you singing? Singing. And they will start talking about chess. Then sometimes the school will invite parents to come to the school to do something together with children. For instance, with small children in a giant chessboard, you can work on seriation, classification, concentration, psychomotricity, etc. Of course, if the 3% is working well, then you are going to have a lot of extracurricular chess classes in several schools as well. And then it is very important to build a solid bridge between educational chess and chess as a sport. I can tell you something which happened to me not very far from here in Bogota, capital of Colombia, about 10 years ago. In Bogota, you can find Adriana Salazar. Adriana Salazar is world's #1 specialist in chess for preschool. She is applying to chess the most innovative theories from Harvard University on educational chess. On innovative education. She is applying that to chess. Then she has been very successful. Her method is working very well in many countries. And I went to Bogota and I was invited by the local chess federation and some clubs, chess clubs representatives to have dinner with them. And they were very kind with me, but at some moment they started to criticize Adriana Salazar. And the argument was because she is not producing big chess talents. And I said, no, you are absolutely wrong. Her duty is not to produce chess talents at all. What she is doing is she is improving the high quality, she is giving a high quality education to those children through chess. Now, it is your duty to be in contact with her, and she organizes some chess festival, chess party, small chess tournaments with her kids. Then you have to go there, observe the kids, contact the parents, parents and kids to go to clubs, and so on. So building that bridge is really important. And then, well, during this process, your best journalists are going to learn that chess is a gold mine for journalism. And that will help you also a lot. Remember that one of the first things I said in this meeting today is that when I am commenting live at tournaments, perhaps that means 5 or 6 hours every day for 10 days in a row. And sometimes somebody is asking me, but Leontxo, how can you be able to talk for so many hours without repeating yourself? Talking always about different things. Of course, if the games going on are fascinating, it's very easy. I am just commenting the games, the moves. quite often in classical chess, of course not in rapid chess, but in classical slow chess, let's say, sometimes the positions are really boring. I mean, there is only one game left, and the position is very technical. I have explained already the technical main ideas of that position, so there is no point on repeating that again and again. So I can start talking about anything related to chess. And as I told you, that can be artificial intelligence, or education, psychology, psychiatry, neurology, history, mathematics, and so on. So the Grenadian journalist will discover that chess is a gold mine for them as well, to write very interesting stories. And well, by that point, I think you will be privileged, because Grenada will be one of the models, country models for the rest of the world.
Yes. Any yes question? Go on.
Good afternoon. I know nothing about chess except to perceive it over my lifetime as a nerd game. But there must be a universal benefit that comes from chess. Just as there is a universal benefit that comes from maybe track and field or football, there must be a universal benefit. When I say universal benefit, I mean what you must reap out of your participation in chess. And from listening to you over the period of time that I've been sat here, I'm hearing education, education, education. So to me, seemingly, chess can help primarily with the improvement of one personal mental state. And there can be no better selling point than that, because every individual and every person as a parent would want to know that his or her child, or even him or herself, would want to acquire that ability to be a better mental person, thinking and all of that. So Mr. President and Mr. I don't know.
Leontxo, yes.
Yes, I believe that that is a unique selling point, unique to chess, and can be used as the initial part of the method of beginning to sell chess in Grenada. You know, utilizing the individuals. I am not a chef. I am just here as a representative from the Grenada Olympic Committee. But I'm seeing that you have persons here seemingly interested in chess. So you can utilize them to automatically beginning to spread the scripture of chess.
Yes. Importance of the nation. Yes. Yes. And well noted. Yes. Yes.
Shall I get back to that?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. Yes, you are absolutely right. I am convinced that today the world needs chess more than ever before. Why? Because people who are much more prominent than me are thinking and saying the same. More and more people are thinking less and less in the current world every day. For several reasons. I think the first one should be the bad use of social networks. We can add some more. At least in my country, the very low quality of many TV programs, the inequality all over the world, which has been increased by the pandemic, the very fast life we have in many countries, etc. So it is the right moment to promote a game that teaches you how to think. And also, just by chance, that game is now in fashion in many countries because of the lockdown. I mean, chess is the only sport you can play through the internet. During the lockdown, a lot of people all over the world started to play chess online. And I don't know how popular was in Grenada the series Queen's Gambit. It's one of the most successful series in the history of Netflix. So both together have made chess fashionable all over the world. And yes, chess is a game. All of us, even when we become adults, have a part of a child inside us. We are also children somehow. So we like playing. Then playing by learning and learning by playing is something that it works very well. So if besides, I mean, on top of what I have said, additionally to what I have said, we have solid scientific evidence and long international experience to support what I'm saying. Well, I think we have a very strong position as a starting point in order to convince authorities and so on.
Yes. Nicholas, before you ask the question, I just want to take my departure because I work very long.
Oh, okay.
As a co-worker, just pay the time for
Okay.
That's a gentleman from St. Andrews.
Yes.
Yeah, Lloyd, and he usually drive over from St. Andrews to go to help us with Gloucester.
Yes.
So I have a couple of words here.
Yeah.
So we speak so we can get going on in progress back.
no problem.
You understand something in progress back? Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, very
Thank you
good.
very much. Very interesting.
Yes, good. Right. So, Gerald?
My question.
Yes, and Gerald is the treasurer of the...
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir. My question is, you spoke about the different pedagogical ways you could teach chess, right? Now, I would assume that those different ways have been developed over a period through the life of the sport. Now, could you share with us where we can find some of those resources? Because if we have to sell it, then we must have the information to say, well, listen, we sell it into the schools. This is where you can use chess to teach history. This is where you can use it to teach Spanish. This is where you can use it to teach mathematics, or whatever the subject is. So, can you share with us?
I suppose you mean information in English.
Yes.
Yes.
Because a big part of the best information is in Spanish, because among the most developed, most advanced countries, and interdisciplinary tool are several Spanish-speaking countries like Spain, Argentina, Uruguay, Andorra, Mexico, Colombia. But in English, I think the best source of high-quality information is in FIDE's website, actually. There is a branch of FIDE's website, which is Chess in Education. But, okay, I will pass it to you, and then you can distribute, okay? Let me see.
Yes, very important question.
In that web page, you can find a big amount of good materials.
In English.
In English.
Yes. And the several videos you refer to.
Okay, I will send you the link.
Yes.
I will send you the link because sometimes it's a bit tricky to find out exactly where that is.
Yes. And as a follow-up to that question, is there a model country, for example, that we can adopt? In other words, do further research and advise. Say, well, listen, Spain is the model that we need to follow, and this is what Spain does. This is how they treat with primary schools, secondary schools, communities as far as educational chess. Is there such a country?
As you pointed out, there are several ways to introduce chess in the curriculum. Theoretically, you could think that the ideal one is the Armenian one. Because in Armenia, chess is compulsory in all schools. Compulsory subject with its own hour. And in Armenia, they have been able to create a new profession, which is the chess professor, which takes 4 years to be graduated. Now, in my opinion, this is not a realistic model. Why? Because in Armenia, chess as a sport is as popular or more than football today. And then in a different country, in a completely different country, like 95% of the remaining countries in the world, it is not realistic, in my opinion, to try to make chess compulsory in all schools from minute one. Instead of that, FIDE last year has labeled as models of good practices for the rest of the world some other countries or territories, because sometimes it's not the whole country who has an official chess program for the whole country, but some regions, especially in federal systems, where every region is autonomous about education and so on. Therefore, 5 Spanish regions, 3 Argentinian provinces, Uruguay as a whole country, Andorra as a whole country. Is a very small country, but very good quality on the chess education and chess system.
Is that Angola, is it?
No, Andorra.
Oh, okay.
Andorra. Of course, Hungary, thanks to Judith Olga's foundation. She is doing a fantastic job there, following the same method, transversal and interdisciplinary, and starting in preschool as well. So those countries have been labeled by FIDE as models of good practices on chess as an educational tool. Of course, you have countries like Cuba, China, India, Turkey, Russia, where chess has been massively introduced in schools as a sport, and very well done. If this is what you are looking for, then those countries are models, including Cuba. Yes, and Cuba is probably the best one for you because it's geographically and politically close. So, but if you are looking for something else, if you are looking for chess as an educational tool, then the other countries I have mentioned are better. Actually, 3 months ago, I had a meeting with the Minister of Education of Cuba, and she is now planning how to introduce chess massively also as an educational tool and not only as a sport.
Okay. Questions?
I wanted to take up on a comment from the Olympic Association, a very good point. And we as a federation, we want to look at it 2 ways. One, creating a team to keep having Grenada represented in tournaments, regional tournaments. Separate and apart from that, we want to introduce chess at all levels, in families, in the home for the aged, autism, special education schools. And the reason for that is the value of the game. It's just the value of the game, because FIDE is big on chess in society, and it's used to bridge generations, meaning an 8-year-old could play against an 80-year-old man, and both enjoy the game. And from the very learning of the game, it's rewarding. Meaning, if you don't know, you said you don't know anything about chess, before you leave, we teach you the names of the pieces, how to set up the board, and how to start a game. You would start understanding why chess is valuable. Because just in half an hour, you start appreciating, and the following time you meet, you learn a little more, and then you can sit and play a game. And it's like, I explain, especially to the youth involved, I explain to them it's like jogging. Yeah, you could walk on the beach, you could jog on the beach, but there's a benefit. You know, you've been exercising physically. It's a similar thing with the chess. Yeah, the mental exercise is not so much who you beat, who you run faster than, you know, if you look at it that way, but just the engagement in the game is the reward. Yeah, so, and that's why online now a lot of people play online. Because just engaging in a simple game online, whether you win or lose, you went through that mental exercise. And that's where, for the mental health tool, with all the associated benefits, we see it as very necessary that it get embraced and spread. Yeah, not as an elite game, even though we'll be training guys to compete with the Grenada colors. But the value is far more, yeah, it goes much further than that. Yeah, in just as a valuable tool for healthy living. Just as you walk, you sit and play. Yeah? And there's a lot of stories as to how, just by playing chess casually, it has yielded several benefits. Different people have different testimonies. But it's wonderful that you made the point. And just by listening, you realize there's something to the game. And the truth is, yes, there is something. And we hope we could one day engage the Olympic Association to teach all the associations, you know, because there's value in that. In terms of football, there's cricket, the mental strength. It gives you a robustness, yeah, a toughness mentally that it's otherwise difficult to get. A simple game, yeah, it's a mental toughness. You hold and you focus and you deal with what before you in a balanced way. Yeah, it's things like that. Yeah, so there's several benefits that we would kind of sort of target the different associations and have them teach the clubs, the different clubs, introduce the different clubs to the game. Yeah, and just learning it. You don't have to play to the rule. Just learning it, yeah, would yield rewards. But thanks for the point.
I just want to make a comment before.
Yeah, sure.
I've taken some photos and I would like to get the correct name of the person's Saturday table. I cannot know the name in the middle. No, before I go, and if you have any other executive member. However, the problem with sports right here, and I was about to ask a while ago, the problem with sports in Grenada, I don't know if you've noticed, but sports in itself generally in Grenada is dying. And it is dying because we have moved from one era of community camaraderie. For example, I grew up in Labrie, and in Labrie there were 2 cricket clubs, hardball cricket clubs. One called Garcia and one called LYC, properly constituted with its different followers. In Labrie, the playing field is there. It is better than it was 20 years ago, but there is no cricket club. There is no football club because we have lost community camaraderie. So I am also thinking of the benefits of chess assisting with re-establishing community camaraderie, and all sports need to do it. Track and field need to do it, football need to do it, volleyball need to do it. We need to go back to community where there are clubs, and it will take you some time, but you can utilize the better individual, just as I know you spoke about that gentleman in war. So you can utilize the various individuals in different communities to start making their own personal friends, because every one of you, every one of us inside here have a following. Maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 30. Wherever we live, we have a following. So we can start seeing how we in our immediate environment start spreading this sport. Maybe I don't know the cost of boards, but maybe that is something you can work through the Olympic Committee to get assistance for increased number of boards, so that you can share to different communities and use the individuals that know the game to start playing it in their communities with their friends and so on, start sharing that knowledge and the benefits of it. Yeah. It's a beginning.
It's a beginning.
It's a beginning, and I think it is an important beginning.
Yeah, beautiful.
Also utilizing the persons that we have. I'm certain that gentleman with a black jacket named Mr. Rogers Ferguson. I don't know.
Yes.
Mr. Rogers Ferguson in Grenada have a following. Yeah. Can you imagine just school showing a game on the internet with Mr. Ferguson and somebody else in what you call battle? Right. And somebody trying to give you a commentary as to what is happening? Somebody who knows Mr.
What is your name?
My name? My name is Ralph Lord. Yeah, the second vice president of the Educator.
Let me just to cut you short, Mr. Ralph, I'm looking forward to the day when you can invite the federation to start a chess club in Library, so just school could carry. Yes.
We have a community center. We have a hacking.
Yes. So let's get the group and we come.
No, what we could do is get all of you.
Yeah.
All the Grenadian chess players. And we set up tables on the court.
Oh, we want Library there too.
No, so you invite people from Library.
Yes.
You understand about it?
Yes.
So it's like what you call a festival of chess.
So give us the date.
Yeah.
Give us the date and we come.
Yes.
And I think I'm really happy that you attended this evening, because a lot of the points you raise are consistent with what the Chess Federation is looking to do. And I think this visit is and there are 3 particular points made here today that's worth repeating, and almost their takeaways. One, Leontxo. Chess is the only competitive sport that can be played both physically and virtually. And FIDE, for example, and that's another point with the Olympic Association, because FIDE is the 4th largest sporting federation in the world. You have 200 countries now are members of FIDE, with millions of players over the world. So it's a popular sport, not necessarily in Grenada, we just develop it. And FIDE is also a member of the International Olympic Committee. And in fact, one of our next, we had planned to do it before, but to join, sending the formal application to join the Grenada Olympic Committee. But chess is we are members of FIDE. Grenada Chess Federation is a member of the International Chess Federation.
Let me tell you something.
Yes.
You were poised to make that application.
Yeah, sure.
You're poised because you are already affiliated to an international body.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me just say that we have given provisional entry to gun and rifle in Grenada.
Okay.
And on the 17th of next month, there will be the annual general meeting where we expect that they get the official entry. So I want to suggest to you that you do not hesitate to send that application
Yeah, by the end of the week.
to the Educator
Yes.
committee
Yes.
with your document that say that you are affiliated to. Because the role and the responsibility of the Educator Olympic Committee is to assist with the development, the spread of sports, just as the IOC, because we are the representation of the IOC in our immediate environment. And we have to follow that mandate as given by the IOC. I want you to remember this last thing I'm going to say if I say nothing more. The Educator Olympic Committee is no longer a lodge. It's no longer a lodge where people feel that they own it and nobody else could belong to it. The newness of the board has spoken differently. We are to work with all minor and major federations to further develop the sport. And the IOC sports is for peace, it's for better community, for better living. Chess is no different.
Okay,
No
well,
different.
thanks for that. Thanks for that. So, in moving forward, because it requires partnerships in moving forward, and what we plan to do, for example, during this visit, a lot of focus is being given to principals. For example, tomorrow afternoon at the GBSS auditorium, there's a meeting with principals of secondary and primary schools. Tomorrow morning at the Ministry of Works Conference Room, there's a meeting with social services, because as Junior mentioned, we're looking at the elderly homes, for example, working with the disabled, working with the school for the deaf, and other entities, the Grand Bacolet Juvenile Center. Points for me, being involved is the Jamaica experience, and a colleague from Jamaica, when we were forming the Chess Federation, one of the points he made is that they use chess to keep young people off the streets and away from violence. So, and in the first 10 years of the formation of the Jamaica Chess Federation, we had 50,000 new players in Jamaica. So it's been moved from an elite sport to a people's sport. And therefore, we are targeting, and that's where the Ministry of Education is, because you can't really access schools, individual secondary schools, without the blessings of the Ministry of Education. So we have those blessings, and I'm sure Leontxo drove the point home, as he reported earlier, from the meeting today. And we are also due to meet with the Minister of Sport on Thursday, and a team from the Ministry of Sports. So we are looking at it as a federation, both as a competitive sport and an educational tool. And that is where, well, in both areas we need partnerships. But coming out of all of this, in terms of deliverables and measurables moving forward, the idea is to get about, well, we have identified 5 schools, secondary schools that we can work with to form chess clubs, donate chess boards, provide trainers for chess in the schools. 5 secondary schools and 2 primary schools. One of those primary schools, the South St. George Government School, principal is very proactive, and Leontxo and Junior were both there today to receive that presentation. So when Leontxo flies off, it is up to us now, and the principal has given his lessons. That school as a primary school, and secondly the Crochet RC school. That again, a presentation will be made in that school on Thursday morning. So we are looking at to develop pilot projects. These 5 secondary schools, 2 primary schools, And in fact, Junior and myself were discussing last night to look at probably the Hillsview Home for the Aged. As a home for the aged, because we can't take it big, we can't deal with everybody, but introducing it in one of the homes. So, and that's one of the takeaway points. So you have competitive chess, but you have chess also as a fun game that the young and the elderly can play both competitively and also, as we discovered from the 2 summer camps we had in 2021 2022, no, 2020 and 2021, that the kids who came were teaching their parents. They went to learn the knobs, excited to learn a new game, and it's a way for the children and the parents to engage. As Junior said, an 8-year-old going into a home and playing an 80-year-old, and it's a form of interaction also. So that is the kind of way we are looking at it, and we are pledged to ensure that not one regional and international tournament passes that we are not represented. So for example, there was the FIDE Congress in India, which Junior attended in early August, and there was the 44th Chess Olympiad, which I believe 162 countries participated in the Olympiad. And the 45th is in Hungary in 2024. It's every 2 years, so we are looking to field a team, a competitive team. So it's a really bright future, and we have had folks here playing very critical roles. Clint and his brother, as far as training. You asking a question?
That's good.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Okay, so we've talked about.
Just a moment, before the question, before I forget it, I have found a specific FIDE website for education materials. Although it is not updated because now FIDE is creating a new website, but the content of this website is still very useful. FIDE.com.
Can you send it?
Yes.
To me,
Yes.
copy the link and send it to them, and put it on the chat.
Yes.
And then you select the language, you select English, and you have a lot of things there. Oh, sorry.
So we're talking a lot about chess in education, but for people who want to represent Grenada in international tournaments also, chess enthusiasts, what are some tips, to get better at chess at any level?
Gary Kasparov model.
Bring my
I am disciplined.
I am disciplined. Yes.
But I'm tempted to say 3 things: working, and working. But I am not a professional coach. You need a professional coach to give you a specific. Today, the big advantage you have is technology. What I'm going to say now is not a scientific evidence, because I didn't measure it in a scientific way, but just to give you an idea. What I was able to learn in 1 month 45 years ago, before technology arrived, before computers and so on, you can learn it today in 1 day. But then a new problem arises. There is so much information that you need somebody to guide you on how to select the information and how to organize your training time. Because you have a lot of tournaments every day online, live. You have in Chess24, Chessable, Chess.com, Chessbase, etc., etc. You have plenty of videos, plenty of databases. Here in my computer, I have a database with 11 million games, very well organized, played since the 16th century until yesterday. But what to do with 11 million games if you don't have a criteria? So definitely you need to talk to a professional coach to put all this infinite information in order and to guide you, because of course it is not the same if you want to be grandmaster that if you want to be a 2000 elo player. I mean, there are different steps and different ways to train yourself, right?
Yeah, so on that point, yeah, especially if it's carried, we have the captain of the national team here, that's Mr. General Roberts, yeah, and we have 4 of the tournament guys identified here, right? And is Renel, what's your last name? Renel Gilbert, PBC, yeah, and what's the age? 15, so you can play both juniors and seniors, yeah, and we have Giovanni, what's your last name? Giovanni Thomas, Tam Sisi, yeah, and age 18, yeah, and what's your name? Jamal. Ramon, last name? Ramon Charles, Tam Sisi too. Huh? Oh, you're leaving Tam Sisi, yes, and Mario Pope, that's GBSS, yeah, what's the age? 15. Yeah. So we have a great hope, and what we need to do, there are several countries that volunteer to assist us with coaching. Barbados, Cuba, and Jamaica. Yeah. I think we may use the Barbados one in the first instance, because a few years ago, probably 10 or so years ago, we already engaged him. So it might be easier for him to engage, because we have a tournament coming up September 17th, yeah, and so we want to be represented. There is a hybrid. Hybrid means we go in one room, all the players, or with camera. Arbiter, we have our arbiter here, Clint, not licensed yet, but we licensed before the tournament so that we could participate. And yeah, so with the arbiter and the players, we call it hybrid tournament, but we play live against, it's something organized by FIDE Americas. Yeah, so the competitive side is there, but we need to get a coach on board early. So you can study the games and then advise accordingly. Study the games, study everybody's games, and advise them as to how, and that's how you improve, based on your style, based on your tendencies, based on the kind of openings you're playing, you would advise, yeah, and that's how you develop, yeah, one game at a time. But we may have to, I think Barbados might be the quickest way to get a coach, because the person has already been involved. He actually came to Grenada and analyzed a few games played in a tournament. Yeah, so it's a good place to start. Yeah, if we outgrow him, yeah, then we could pass the senior team on to a more advanced coach and pass him to a junior team. Yeah, but we also have to focus on women. Yeah, I remember when our friend here was the only female chess player registered. So we lost several games by default because we didn't have women play. Yes, but I'm very happy to see the 4 guys here remind me of the Angolan team in the Olympics. It's just 4 little guys. But I think one was a grandmaster, one was a candidate master. This guy is just, and they look just as you guys. Yeah, and I just stand in awe just watching them. Yeah. The Barbados female team was 2 secondary school girls. Yeah, 2 secondary school girls. That's who represented Barbados. Yeah, so that's really, that's the kind of impetus we have to go forward with. Yeah. a national team in training constantly because there's tournaments almost every month. Yeah, there's one for the prisons. We go into the prisons, we find out if there's players there, and we compete in the prison in the international tournament for prisoners.
That's and that's
in October. In October, yeah. And we really want, I really hope I meet a chess player in the prison. Yeah, even though it's one.
I like Grenada so much that on Friday I'm going to ask to be accepted as prison inmate.
I was just saying, I hope they release you. You're due to go in on Thursday morning. Okay, folks, I think we have been at it for some time, and I trust that this was, a very informative and educational session. It's our first taste of chess in education, certainly this week. And it's a concept that Grenadians and others will be hearing about as we move forward with that program to bring chess nationwide, including Caracou and Petit Martinique. So lots of work to be done, and probably I should turn over to Junior to make the final remarks. And Leontxo.
Yes. And we have a little stock back here. So I'd like to thank all for turning out. Yes, our friends from Sri Lanka. Yeah, we have Sri Lankan friends. We've been playing before the pandemic. We used to play every Saturday by Tropicana. Yeah, and since the pandemic, we haven't restarted. But I think we may look for a weekday. I think Kwabina was speaking. Rather than Saturdays, just take an afternoon. And Saturdays are very problematic for a lot of people. So we may take a weekday from 4 to 6, and just put on the boards and people pass and play. So at least there's a chess afternoon.
I think he organized for Wednesdays.
On Wednesdays?
So we start the week after.
Not this, from the week after next. Yes, yeah. We want to kind of have a regular afternoon when anybody could pass and just play a game, get introduced to a game, learn the game, a steady afternoon. So I want to thank each and every one of you, for coming out. The one who left early, Just Cool for carrying it, recording it, and also transmitting live.
Remember we have a chess federation in India?
Yes,
I love chess, I love to play chess, but
So welcome.
We have a new member. So that's the last time we're going to be paying Just Cool. The youthfulness of the group is what inspires me. I feel very, very motivated. Similar for and the parents and the excitement on the children's faces. We stopped after the lockdown, and anytime we're walking through, so when we started, they want to play. Yeah, chess is like that. And they just play and laugh. They don't play and fight. They play and laugh, and they might give each other make a little joke with each other. But chess is a game. It's a game that they recognize that. And so the parents want them to come. The parents look for them. You have chess just now, pull them out and go and play. Yes, And so, Leontxo, I want to thank you kindly, the gentleman that I met the first morning when I got to India on the breakfast table. We were on different tables, and I was telling the other Caribbean Federation representatives, my aim is to see if we can get somebody to help promote chess in Grenada. And I casually mentioned that to Leontxo, and he explained what he was doing. And I couldn't believe that the first morning I was meeting exactly who I wanted to meet. And the other Caribbean islands weren't so interested. They're not bothered, they're fighting up with the teams, And I said, I'm not bothered, we don't have a team. So I was me and Leontxo, and then by going to the games, there's a pavilion where there's presentations of the different things chess can do. Right? That's where you see chess in prisons, chess with the disabled, chess in education, in preschool. I'm fascinated by the preschool lady. She is good. She had all of us dancing and singing preschool songs. There's a song she ends the chess class with that names all the pieces and how they move. And you have to do the move. and I asked her for the tune, for the music. She told me it's on YouTube. You know? She told me to download the thing. Well, all right. Yeah. Chess for preschool. Chess for preschool is a powerful thing. Very, very, very powerful. And I've seen it. The way she handles it, I see the impact. Yeah, and so I know the game can do a lot for education generally. Forget about playing the tournament, just self-improvement on many dimensions of it. And Leontxo, he's sitting here humbly, but he's very, very experienced. I heard him speak about each and every topic, chess in society. Each and every, he has a special game he invented called gym chess. And it's amazing. Yeah, it's because that's when you go deep into it, that's what it is really a mental exercise. You know, so you go and lift weights, physical exercise, but he has a way of using chess not to play, win or lose a game, but just to give you that mental. It's just amazing, yeah, that I'm very happy too that he agreed to come because his schedule was extremely tight. He had to go to Bogota, come back in Dominica, hit St. Lucia, and agreed to spend a week here before he heads out again. And so Leontxo, yeah, heartfelt thanks for making yourself available and doing all. We've been running from morning, and some of you might see me going. We're going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, you know, and grab something to eat briefly and then run here. So his wife is waiting for him, and I'll show you she'll beat him tonight. Never to blame the Chess Federation, it's not your fault.
The Canadian Chess Federation is a fantastic host. I am in very good hands for the whole week here. And I would like to finish with quoting one of the best chess players 100 years ago. He was from Germany, Siembert Tarras, and he said, chess, like music, like love, can make people happy. So I hope that chess will contribute to make you reasonably happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Well, we have refreshments to the left.